Hello, everyone. So another live Q&A for you. So I've been doing these every Tuesday for the last few weeks, and it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions about the IELTS test, regardless of what part of the test, so be it, like task 1 general, task 1 academic, task 2 reading, listening, speaking, whatever it is. If you have questions, if there are things you can't find out, things you don't understand, just let me know what the question is, and I'll be happy to answer that for you. Or another way to get help is, rather than asking a question, you might want to describe an issue that you're facing, some problem that you're having at the moment, and I can explain how to overcome that. So that's pretty much it. I just wait on your comments, and then I give you answers or advice based on that. Hey, Blessing, good to see you here again. Hello to you. Welcome to the lesson as well. So while we're waiting for questions to come through, just wanted to let you know that, so I have a live stream on Thursday as normal. And after that, I'm moving back home. I'm moving home with my family, moving back to Ireland with my family next week. So there won't be any live streams next week or the week after. And then hopefully it'll be 2 weeks of no live streams, and then I'll be back after that. But it depends on, I have to go back, get everything sorted out, get an office set up, get internet connections, all that stuff. So I'm presuming I can do all of that in 2 weeks. So I'll be back after that. If not, it might be another week, but I don't see it being more than 3 weeks. But hopefully 2 weeks of no live streams and then back to normal. So more than ever, make sure you ask whatever questions you have today, because I won't be available. Same goes for any of you who attend my live feedback lessons. So again, I'll have it this week, but there will be none for probably 3 weeks again. But I'll just make sure that I get everything sorted as quickly as possible, and I'll be back to help you all again. Hi, Deborah. Good morning. Hoseen, hello to you. Hey, Janice. Ifat, good to see you here. Pact, hello to you, sir. I'm doing very well, thank you. Busy, but I always say that. That's always the case. But extra busy these days. Fiesa, hello to you. Hi, Victor. Long time no see. Deborah, okay, here we go. Questions. Reading seems difficult for me. Is there any strategy I can apply to improve my reading? So you did the IELTS test last month and you got 6.5. Yeah, there are lots of strategies. My strategy is to read one paragraph and then read all the questions and answer every question you can. Then read the next paragraph and go through all the questions and answer every question you can. I find it's more straightforward because skimming and scanning can be difficult. You might be looking for a word, but you miss it easily. It's much easier to not find the information compared to just read the first paragraph. You'll know what it's about. Then you answer, look at the 13 questions, answer as many as you can. You might need to go back and find the exact piece of information, but just go paragraph by paragraph instead of going question by question. I find that far, far easier, much easier approach. There's a little bit more to it than that. So, there are some questions that come in order. Sorry, some answers that come in the same order of the questions. So you can take advantage of that as well. I think the easiest thing for me to do here, Deborah, is to just share a link with you to a page on my website. And I go through my full reading strategy and all the extra little bits and pieces that you might want to know about that. So let me just share this for you. All right. So if you just look in the comments, so just below where you commented, you'll see this reading strategy, and that's the link there. So I've kind of given you a summary of what that reading strategy is, and those are essentially the most important things. But you'll also find some other tips and some other little bits of information that make it just a little bit easier to get through it. But keep in mind as well, like if you don't have the vocabulary, like maybe your strategy is perfect. Maybe you already have a strategy and the strategy is perfect. And the problem is that you don't have the vocabulary to understand the texts or to understand the questions. And as a result of that, you can't find the answers. The solution isn't my strategy. The solution is improve your vocab. So just keep that in mind as well. But I go through all that in the page that I just shared with you. So it's all there. I have one question concerning the IELTS test. Okay, shoot away. Ask whatever question you have, just ask. Otuka, hello. Hi, Delitzo, good to see you here. Pahit, hello to you, sir. Welcome. Niyamatullah, hello. I realize that I'm saying your names incorrectly, but I'm trying my best. That's the truth. Fisa, how many IELTS can we go to study abroad, sir? I'm not sure what your question means. I presume I'm getting a warning that my internet connection is low. When the weather gets bad, my internet connection suffers. So sorry if the screen is fuzzy. That happens sometimes. With your question, Fisa, okay, so you're either asking what scores do you need, and that means that you need to first find out what university you want to study at and ask them what scores you need. Different universities will have different requirements. So, I would never have that information. You'd need to contact the university, or if you're working with a good agency, they would be able to help you as well. But that is not information that I have. So like any students who join my course, like one of the first questions I ask is, what score do you need? Because I don't have that information. So my students come to me telling me what score they need. I'm not able to give advice on that. That's not something that I know about. Akil, hello, good afternoon. Hello, Bincy, good to see you here. Deborah, you are very welcome, no problem. Kashif, good afternoon. Mr. Ryan, question, what should be focused more during listening, the text or the voice? Yeah, that's you have to, depending on where you are in the test. Sometimes you'll have to focus on the questions. Sometimes you'll have to focus on the audio. And that can be difficult because if you're trying to read the questions, you can't listen to the audio, and then the answer is revealed in the audio while you're reading the question, so you miss it. And that is part of the strategy. You have to figure out when is it safe to look at the questions, when do you need to listen to the audio, and it's a real balancing act between those two things. But one thing to keep in mind, well, obviously the answers appear in the same order as the questions. So, you kind of need to keep an eye on two questions at a time. So like, let's say you're looking at questions 1 and 2 at the same time, just in case you hear the answer to question 2, then you've missed question 1 already, and you just need to start focusing on question 3 straight away. So you should kind of have two questions in mind at the same time. You should be aware of the next two questions coming up, so that if you do miss one, that you don't completely lose track. But the other thing then is, as you are going through, as the test is going on, what you'll notice is that they'll talk about topics. So they'll go through like a set kind of one section or one aspect of what they're talking about, and then they introduce the next topic. So they kind of move from topic to topic throughout the audio. And when they're moving from one topic to the next, so it'd be something like, well, what about the situation with A, B, and C? And when they're introducing that new topic, that's a really good opportunity to focus on the questions, because there'll be a little bit of time where they're setting up the next topic, and that there won't be any answers during that time. So that is something to keep in mind as well. I think I've answered your question. Hey, Betsy from Jerusalem. Very good. And I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Back in. How to pronounce conflict, awareness, genocide, violence. So these are questions, and even like students on my course, students who pay me money to support them, I would not answer questions like this, because that is not helping you to improve. If you need another person to tell you how to pronounce words, then you're limited to how many times you can ask someone. This is something you need to be able to work out by yourself. And it's as simple as go to Cambridge Dictionary and click the little audio button under the word, and it'll play it for you. So you're this type of question can be solved without the help of others. So that's what I would recommend. Go to Cambridge Dictionary, type in those words, and just click the little audio track underneath, and you'll get it that way. Also, there's a really good. To be honest, I don't know. I don't really understand what it is. It seems to be an app, but it lives on a web browser, like where you would normally, do a search on a web browser like Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever. So normally that shows you the results and you click on it to go in. But this thing just lives on browsers. I've never seen anything like it before. But if you just type in how to pronounce conflict into Google or Bing or whatever browser you use, that will come up with this like blue box that shows you the pronunciation and allows you to record your own voice to tell you if you're doing it correctly or incorrectly. It'll show you what you're doing wrong. It's a fantastic little tool. And in fact, let me just show you quickly here. I've shown it in my videos before, so I mean, if you're familiar with my stuff, this won't be a big surprise to you. But it's a great little app. So I'm using Google, but you can just use any browser. So how to pronounce what was it? Conflict. Okay. Oh, now I look like a liar because it's not showing up. How to pronounce wall. Oh, okay. So it seems that the app doesn't have every word in the English language, but this is what I was trying to tell you about. So this one, and like I said, it works in Google, but I thought it worked for every word. But anyway,
wall.
It'll play an audio recording. It'll show you what the mouth movement looks like. It'll allow you to record it. So you say war. War. Okay, so you can see that I pronounce it with an R instead of an L, so it points out that, and then it'll show you what you need to do with your tongue and your teeth and your mouth and everything. So it gives you a detailed description of, what mistakes, how to overcome your mistake. A wonderful little app, but I've just discovered that it doesn't have every word. But definitely use those tools. Use those tools to help you figure out these types of questions. There's great apps like that to help you, and it allows you to improve by yourself, because you don't want to be dependent on somebody telling you the pronunciation of every single word. You're just not going to make as much progress as you should. You're not going to get a lot out of your the time that you spend studying. Harry Jack, nice to meet you. Hello. Vishal, I'm doing very well. Questions to come. Okay, perfect. Hello, Akhil. Kishwar, hello to you. Aisha, good afternoon. Welcome to the lesson. And Nashad, hello to you too. Hossein, sir, any tips for IELTS exam on computer? To me, the biggest thing is that you're not able to write on the question sheet. And for academic task 1, that's a bit of a disadvantage because it's nice to be able to draw on a graph and go like, this is the highest one, this is the lowest one, or this one increased, and like annotate the question. So I think that's a disadvantage. It shows you the word count. That's an advantage. I'm much better at typing than writing by hand. By better, I mean faster. I'm much faster at typing. So I would absolutely go for the computer-based test. But for task 1, I'd recommend just kind of making a rough sketch of the categories so that you can analyze them, or at least make notes about which ones are highest and lowest. But I'm sure, like, if you've seen any of my task 1 stuff, you've seen me make those notes on the question pages. So it's just a little bit inconvenient for academic task 1. But that's it, really. There's not much else. There are online, I don't know if it's IELTS.org or the IDP website, but they have released versions of, like, practice reading and practice listening in the computer-based format, just to help you see what it looks like. But it's essentially the same thing. The only reason I would say don't do the computer-based test is if you're not good at typing, because that's a completely different skill. And if you're not good at typing, then, well, that's going to take you that's going to be a major disadvantage. And, you have enough to learn already without having to learn how to type. So I think that's the main consideration. Are you faster at typing by hand or by computer? And like one student said to me a few months back, he said, I make way more spelling mistakes when I'm typing than I do when I'm writing by hand. And I mean, I do the same, and I had never thought about that before. But I have like spell checkers just correcting the mistakes automatically. So that's something to consider as well. Like, how well would you do without a spell checker? Okay, here we go. Which type of language used in test is it? Statistic language or academic? And the test is divided, or one paper include grammar, comprehension, and writing. Okay, so you're obviously very new to the IELTS test. So I think just an overview of the test. Let me share something with you. So I have what I've labeled a beginner's guide to IELTS. So if I share that with you, that will help, because I think it's not just that I don't want to answer your question, but your question shows some basic misunderstandings of how the test works. So I think you need a bit more detail. So let me just share this with you. Okay, so I've called this Beginner's Guide to IELTS, and you'll find it in the comments here. So be it on YouTube or Facebook, just click on that. But that is essentially going to guide you through some of the misunderstandings you have. And it'll be easier because just because where you're from, there's a lot to explain. Sorry, not where you're from, where you're at, where you are in your IELTS preparation. So I think that link will be a good help for you. Vishal, task 1, writing. Do we need to discuss all details, or we can cluster? I have read somewhere that if we miss the information, they will deduct the score. Yeah, you need to include everything, but you need to describe the key features. So like if you're looking at a line graph, you don't mention every year for every category. You mention like the main points. So like, if it started here, went up, sorry, my camera's reversed, started here, went up, and then down, you would mention, the 2 bottom points and then the 1 peak at the top. Or if it just went in a straight line up, sorry, again, I'm on a straight line up, you just mention the first and the last. You don't need to mention anything in the middle if it's just a straight line. So it's about mentioning all the key features. Don't ignore any categories. So yeah, you need to include all the key features, not every single piece of data that you can find. But that would be for a line graph. But like for a table, you would need to describe every piece of data or include every piece of data. But like you said, you can cluster. So you might say, like categories A, B, and C had a range between 5 and 8. So instead of saying A was 5, B was 7, A was 5, B was 7, D was, oh my God, A was 5, B was 7, C was 8. Instead of saying that, you can just say A, B, and C were between 5 and 8. So sometimes you do need to cluster like that, especially if there are a lot of categories in the question. Please elaborate for us how to approach task 1 in terms of vocabulary to use. So I have a good lesson for you on that. I'm assuming you're talking about task 1 academic IELTS writing task 1. So I have a link that'll show you basically a very good range of vocab that covers most aspects. Have a look at the coherence and cohesion one and the grammar one as well. But for vocab, this is what you want to look at. So it's so for you, James, this is what you're looking for. Academic task 1 vocabulary. I'm assuming that you're talking about academic. How can I improve my listening skills? So again, it's with everything. You need to understand what is it about listening that you're not good at. So is it listening in general? I mean, in relation to you never listen to English, you never watch movies, you never listen to music, you never listen to podcasts, and the only time you ever listen is when you're doing a practice IELTS listening test. Well, if that's the situation, then you need to spend more time listening to English. Start off with something that's not too difficult, though. You don't want to start with something incredibly difficult because you're not going to be able to improve much. And again, and on the other side is don't listen to something too easy, because if it's too basic, then you're not improving either. So it has to be just a little bit difficult for you, not something that you can't understand one word. Then it might be, your listening skills are an issue because you don't understand some accents. So, maybe you can understand English people, no problem, but you can't understand Irish people. It could be something like that. So it might be you're not kind of familiar with a range of accents. It could be, it's just you don't have the vocab, but that would be an issue for, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So it might be, but not necessarily. And it could be just, your approach to the test. Maybe you don't have the exam techniques to get the score you need. So it could be just you don't know how to answer various question types. So again, you really need to figure out what is it that's stopping you from getting a higher score and address that. Kashif, you're very welcome. Fisa, how can I prepare for the IELTS test? Right, so let me just describe what I do with the students on my course. It starts off like this. Learn what you're supposed to do. Try to do it. Get feedback on the mistakes you've made when you try to do it. Take action on those mistakes. Improve your scores by trying again. Get more feedback and go around in that cycle. So it's always going to be learn what you're supposed to do, try to do it, find out what you did wrong, and just go in that cycle until you can get your scores. Vishal, for task 2 writing, if they ask advantages or disadvantages, can we explain one in each paragraph? Or else the essay will be too long. If you're asked for advantages and disadvantages, you need to include 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages, because it specifically says advantages. So if the question says, what are the advantages and disadvantages? You need to include 2 of each. But then there are other versions where it says, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Or it might say, are there more advantages than disadvantages? And those are different question types. So you would address them differently depending on which one you get. But if it specifically says what are the advantages and disadvantages, and you include one advantage and one disadvantage, you haven't done what you've been asked to do. So task achievement score would suffer. So I think I've answered your question there. So I was saying to you all earlier on that I am going to be moving home, and I'm not going to be doing my live feedback lessons for about 3 weeks. I do have one tomorrow, so you can sign up if you haven't already. I'll see you there tomorrow. So my free live feedback lessons are free group classes on Zoom, and each lesson we go through a different part of the test. So if you haven't already signed up, you'll find that link there. You'll find it in the video description as well. But sign up for those, come along, get involved. Let me help you improve the various parts of the IELTS test, improve your ability, improve your scores. But like I said, I'll be there tomorrow, 2, possibly more likely 3 weeks, where I'm moving home and I need to get myself set up there and get settled in. But the schedule's already set up, and you will see the schedule, and I'll be back. I'll be back with more as soon as I've got settled in back home. After 14 years away from home, I'm moving back. So it's a pretty big deal. And obviously it'll just take a while for me to get myself set up. So yeah, if you want to get involved in those, sign up for that now and come tomorrow. And then, like I said, I'll be gone, but I'll be gone for a few weeks, but I'll be back with more after that. Gift, how can I improve on time management in IELTS reading? So there are a few things to consider. The first one is, are you already getting the scores that you need? Like if you need a band 8 and you're currently getting band 7 in your practice tests, then don't worry about time. Worry about the score. So if you're spending more time doing your practice tests for now, that's not a big deal. The problem is you're not getting the score you need. So focus on that first. After that, time management is about figuring out which questions you're losing time on. So like a lot of students lose time on true, false, not given, because they think it's not given, but they don't trust themselves enough. And they spend more time trying to verify that, is it definitely not given, or maybe it's false and they're not sure. So a lot of students lose time with that question type. Matching headings is another one where students will just go over and over and over the paragraph again and again, trying to make 100% sure, and losing time because of that. So it could be that. It could be that you're rushing through part 1 and then getting stuck in part 3 because the vocab is too difficult. So you'd actually be better off spending more time on part 1 and getting all the answers correct, and less time on part 3 because it's more difficult and you're going to lose marks anyway. So it's just figuring out where you're going wrong, where are you losing time, and taking it from there. So again, it just, as always, it depends on why it is that you are having specific problems with time management, and your problems will be different from other people's problems. And again, like that's why obviously I have free group classes for you all, but when my students come to my courses, like pay money to join my courses, that's all one-on-one, because like different people have different problems. Different problems require different solutions. So yeah, it is going to be unique to you. Web application, not sure what that is. Hussein, not sure what you're asking me, but please feel free to rephrase that. Otuka, good morning, sir. I'm always confused on that A, B, and C in listening module. How do I approach it? So normally you can just look at the actual question and find the answer first before you look at the options. That can be easier. Because if you look at A, B, and C, then you're trying to think of three ideas and you're trying to listen for which of the three ideas is correct. Sometimes it's easier to just know what the question is and find the answer based on, what comes from the audio, rather than making it more complicated by looking at all the options. But play around with it. Different strategies will work for different people, but I find, especially for the longer ones where there's a lot to read, it can be easier to just focus on the questions. One more question. Sorry, Ryan. No need to be sorry. That's what we're here for, Vishal. No need to be sorry. If you have questions, ask them. In discussing both the views and give your own opinion type question, can we state our stance in the introduction? Few, they say, don't mention till conclusion. I'm baffled. Put it in the introduction for sure. It shouldn't be a mystery to the reader what you think. If you've been asked for your opinion, put it in the introduction. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no reason to leave it till the end, because you need a clear opinion throughout your answer. So if you just put it in the end, then it wouldn't be throughout your answer. So if anything, that would reduce your score. No. Put it in the end, put it in the beginning, put it in the introduction, put it in the conclusion. Absolutely. Yeah. Make it as clear as possible. Try new Microsoft Edge. I've been using Google so long, and I have all my apps and my extensions and everything. And maybe Edge is better. But I've just been using Google so long. At this stage, it'd be like relearning it. I've kind of grown fond of Google at this point. Hello, Mithila. Hello to you. Hey, Mohammed. I'm doing very good. Hope you're doing well too. Nia Mithila, how should we know to... Sorry, I need to read that again. How should we know we are able for IELTS test? It's very difficult for a student to know when they're ready. And this is honestly, when students fail their IELTS test, they'll sometimes, my students will ask me, should I go for an EOR? And I'll ask them, why do you think your score should be higher? They say, because I did well. But what does well mean? Well doesn't mean 7. Well doesn't mean 6. It's just that's your own subjective opinion on it. And it's the same before you go and do the test. And I think this is why it's so disappointing for so many people. Students need a band 7. They're better at English than all their friends, all their family. They were the best at English in their school, and they think that their English is fantastic. And I'm not saying it's not fantastic, but what their opinion of how good their English isn't the IELTS scale. So very often students get very surprised when they realize, they need a 7, but they're actually a band 6. And they're very surprised to find that out, because how else would you know? There's nothing to compare it with until you do the IELTS test. So for most students, they don't know what scores they're capable of until they do the IELTS test. Most students who join my course have already done the IELTS test a few times and failed because they were trying to do it by themselves. And then they realize they're not able to do it by themselves. So they join the course, they get my support. And the students on my course, well, they know, because I've been an IELTS examiner. I know how to mark writing. I know how to mark speaking. I can explain what scores they got. I can explain why they got their scores. And I can explain what they need to do to improve their scores. And with students on my course, I will say, you're not ready for the test yet. You're not ready for the test yet. When they're ready for the test, now you're ready. Whatever score they need, we stay improving until they're capable, and then they go and book their test. So honestly, without the help of an expert, I think the only way is to just stay doing the IELTS test over and over again. But even with that, you don't know why you're not getting your scores. So for speaking example, you're going to get a score for fluency, vocab, grammar, and pronunciation. but on the certificate, the only score they give you is the overall score. So how do you know if your problem is in fluency or vocab or grammar or pronunciation when you don't? So again, like it is really, really important to get feedback from an expert to help you understand where to focus your attention and what areas to work on. Mathila, how can I improve my speaking skills? So you're probably going to think I'm just repeating myself now, but again, it depends on why you are not getting the IELTS score you need. Do you need to improve your fluency? Do you need to improve your vocab? Do you need to improve your grammar? Do you need to improve your pronunciation? And you can't just improve all of them at the same time. They each require a different strategy. So, you can't improve your vocab and your fluency by doing one thing. You have to do one thing for each one. So it's about, figuring out which area is your specific weakness and then taking action on that. Hey, Maravik. Always good to see you here. Just by practicing. Yeah, you need to practice, but you need to know what you're practicing. So let's say you have a problem with grammar and you just practice speaking with a partner or practice speaking by yourself. That's not going to improve your grammar. It will improve your fluency, but just practicing speaking, that's going to improve fluency, not grammar. Grammar requires, a specific approach of figuring out what grammar areas you have an issue with, learning that grammar in more depth, looking at it, doing active reading, and then introducing it to your writing, and then introducing it to your speaking, and getting feedback on, are you making enough progress? Have you made enough progress to get your scores yet? So there's a lot involved in it for sure. But practicing is definitely, but is it practicing grammar? Is it practicing pronunciation? What are you practicing is important. Hey, Salik. How many essays should we read and practice for a better score in the IELTS for writing part 2? I don't know, to be very honest. Why are you reading essays? What is the purpose of reading essays? I would need to ask that question before I could answer it. And I feel like there might be, I think my answer might be you don't need to read any. Like sample essays are useful when you're learning a structure. So again, like, if a teacher's teaching you a structure and then you see it in a sample essay, that can make it easier to see how all the pieces fit together and what you're aiming to do. But it's not that you need to, read an endless amount of essays and eventually by reading essays you'll be able to produce them. I mean, you need to read them to get to the point where you understand what you're trying to do. Once you understand what you're trying to do, then you need to start, practicing that yourself, start doing it yourself. I see like a lot of students, they feel like idea generation is very difficult. So they can never think of the ideas they need for their essays. And they think that reading other sample answers will help them with that, but it's not, because you're not exercising that part of your brain. You need to get better at generating ideas, not looking at someone else's ideas. In the same way that, like you're not going to get better at math by using a calculator all the time. You have to start doing it in your head. And, by practicing doing it in your head, you get better at doing math in your head. But the longer you use a calculator, the worse you get, really. So you kind of have to think about it in that sense. Okay. So just in relation to, so I've been talking about my course there. Let me just share the link with you guys. But basically I have essay corrections, practice IELTS speaking tests where I give you feedback. And then I have full courses where, I take you more by the hand, have lessons on the various aspects of the IELTS test, opportunities to practice, more one-on-one meetings. So, obviously the courses are more hands-on than the corrections, but they're available with that link. So if you're interested in those, feel free to have a look. Okay, Hossein, Sir, for two pie charts in different years, is using during correct? Or should we say in the years? For example, 2000, 2015. In. So if there's one pie chart for 2018, sorry, for 2000, in 2000, golf had the popularity of 15%. During 2000, golf in. Both, actually, they're both fine. During or in would be fine. Montessir, hello, how are you? Good, thanks. Please pray for me. My IELTS exam will be held on the 28th of April. Ooh, I say you have the wrong date there. Or did you already do your test? I'll pray for you either way. Best of luck. I hope, for sure, I hope that you get your scores. But 28th of April is already passed, so maybe you're just waiting for your scores at this point. Either way, best of luck. Best of luck if it's you're waiting on your scores. 28th of May. There we go. Yeah. Okay. You still have plenty of time. About 2.5 weeks. You can make a lot of progress in 2.5 weeks. So don't obviously pray, but also get stuck in. You can make a lot of progress in 2.5 weeks. So don't just depend on prayers and luck. Jervin, hello to you. Selig, hello Ryan. How many essays should we read? Okay, so that was the same question we looked at earlier on. So more information for me there, Selig. What are you trying to achieve by reading essays? That would help me give you a better answer. How can I tackle a question in 2 different graphs in writing task 1? So it just depends what information. If it's different information in the graphs, if the information isn't related, then you just deal with them separately. So describe one and then describe the other. But if it's the same information, so like, the same information but for different years, then you would need to, talk about how the categories have changed. But if it's just completely separate data, then you can't compare it, and you just have to deal with them separately. Vishal, you're very welcome. No problem. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, Vishal. Montessir. Hi, Lar. How are you? Okay. We saw that already. Hello, Israt. Welcome to the lesson. I want to give you one speaking mock. Yep. So you'll find that service there with the link that I shared already. So it's just down here, one-on-one corrections and IELTS courses. So that's the link you're looking for there. So that's a good point, actually. So I'm saying that I'm not going to be here for my live feedback lessons next week, and I'm not going to be doing live streams for the next 2 or 3 weeks. But for the students who've already joined my courses, I know you don't come, like they normally don't come to these live streams anyway, because I have everything they need is in the course. But just in case any of you are watching, I will be available for you while I'm moving. Like, obviously when I'm on the plane, I'm not going to be correcting essays, but from the day I leave until the day I arrive, I'm going to be available throughout. So just in case you're getting worried that I'm disappearing for 3 weeks, I'm not. It's the free live stuff that's going to be on hold while I get my life organized. Selig, in order to have more feedback. So it's not feedback looking at someone else's essays. And then if you're looking at different essays that are following different structures, that might be confusing. I think essays for task 1 are useful because you can see the vocabulary being used, and the vocab that we use for task 1 academic for graphs and charts, that's the same stuff that's that's used over and over again. So that would be beneficial. But inevitably, you have to start doing it yourself so that you get better at it. Abhishek, if we write different type of essay daily, if we write one essay per day up to 20 days, we are able to pass part 2. No, that would definitely help. That would be part of the process, absolutely. But the thing is, like, you need to write quite a few essays getting ready, because you need to get comfortable with generating ideas. You need to get comfortable with the different question types. You need to get comfortable with the different way you answer the question depending on which question type you get. You need to make sure that you can do it in 40 minutes or less. So yeah, definitely writing essays is a big part of preparing for the IELTS test. But if you just sit down and do one essay every day for 20 days, that does not mean that you're ready. That does not mean that you're ready for the test. Because, like, let's say you have a problem with articles, with the grammar, that part of grammar. You have a problem with articles on day 1, and you write essays every day for 20 days, then you still have a problem with articles on day 20. So let's just say, even if everything is perfect, but you're not getting the grammar score you need because you're making too many article mistakes, at that point, it doesn't matter how many essays you write, because you're not addressing the problem that you have. So yes, what you're saying is definitely a part of preparing for the IELTS test, but that is not the only action that's required. You would need to also address whatever issues you're having, as well as doing that. And as well, I would say, writing, not that writing one essay a day for 20 days is a problem, but that's not a lot of time that you're dedicating to the IELTS test. Like, maybe you're hoping that the process won't be that difficult, but like, successful IELTS candidates spend a very long time studying. Like, they'll study for hours and hours every day, some for a few weeks, some for a few months, but not everybody needs to spend the same amount of time, but it is a massive, you have to be very, very dedicated to get a high IELTS score. It doesn't come because you want it. It comes because you've worked for it. So, what I would worry about with your question is, are you going to spend 40 minutes a day for 20 days? That's probably not enough time. Salik, my level of English is enough. Yeah, so if you already have the vocab level and the grammar level, all you need to do is figure out task achievement and coherence and cohesion. So, like, a while back, a few months back, I had like a student from Sri Lanka. His name is Indanil, and I mean, I got him a band 7 in 5 days, because he already had the vocab and grammar. So, I mean, once you have that, it does not take long to put all the pieces together. The reason why some students will take months is because they don't have the vocab, they don't have the grammar, and most of the time goes improving vocab and grammar to the required level for the IELTS score they need, not necessarily exam technique, strategy, all that stuff. So the bigger task is getting your language ability to where it needs to be, rather than figuring out the IELTS test, which can be confusing, but as long as you have the right support, that's not the biggest challenge. Okay, so it seems like that's all the questions for today. Like I said, I have another live stream tomorrow, and I'll see you in the live feedback lesson tomorrow if you've already subscribed for those. Besides that, like the video, subscribe to my channel, like my page, follow my page, all that stuff. Also, if you have any friends or family members or any colleagues studying IELTS, make sure to send them to my channel as well. It would be great to reach a wider audience. Mohammed, how to learn task 2? I just started learning task 2. Let me share something with you here quickly, and then I'll finish up. All right, Mohammed, there's a link for you. It's on YouTube or on Facebook, either one. They're the same thing. Okay, so that's it. Apologies for the internet connection. It's just the weather here at the moment always affects the internet when it's a bit cloudy. Okay, that's it for today. Take care of yourselves. Hope you're all doing well and talk to you next time. Bye.